Vamos a seguir con la agenda FIAD y ahora es el momento de escuchar a Perttu Pölönen desde Finlandia. Va a hablar sobre nuevas habilidades y diálogo intergeneracional. Esta conferencia va a ser presentada por nuestros sponsors Oro y Sisi y la Universidad Europea. La conferencia de Perttu también va a ser en inglés con traducción simultánea, así que les repetimos, seleccionen en el margen derecho superior de la pantalla la opción más conveniente que crean, en idioma original, inglés, o para quienes prefieren la traducción simultánea al castellano. Bienvenida, Perttu, a FIAD.
Hey everybody, and thank you for the invitation to talk to you. Greetings from Finland. So I'm going to talk about intergenerational dialogue. Let me first put the slides on so you can follow something for you to look at as well. Just one quick second. I will put it right there. Okay. So let's start with the big picture, and go through some history. We can divide the world with a very big brush just to two eras. And the way and why I do this is because change has been very different for the last 30 years than what it has been before that. For thousands of years, for a very long time, pretty much forever we can remember, change has been linear. So from one person, if we wanted to tell them something new, we gave the information from one person to another person, who then gave it forward to a third person and a fourth person. And we were very much able to predict when the information kind of reaches certain areas or points. The information travels only as fast as the horse can run. So the world in which we have lived has changed linearly, but also it has changed locally, meaning that if we invented something new, we were not aware of the people from the other side of the world. It was possible that they were doing something similar to us, but we did not know of them. So basically, the change happened in local communities. We had country lines, we had borders, we had geographical borders, we have language barriers that prevented us from kind of sharing the knowledge to all around the world. So for a very long time, change has been limited to linear and local change. Now, for the last 30 years, has the change been local anymore? Well, obviously not. It's global, right? Has the change been linear anymore? Well, no, it's now exponential. So from linear to exponential, from local to global. If something happens on the other side of the world, we hear about it in one day. It changes our everyday lives. Tomorrow, there's some analysis about it in the evening news. So this environment is very different from what we've always had before. And if we put these numbers together, I mean, thousands of years and just 30 years, which means that we have people that have had very different environments in which they have been brought up, if they are less than 30 versus before that. Now, how have we normally learned new skills or gotten new knowledge? Well, from our parents and from older people. So for centuries, fathers taught their sons, and mothers and teachers taught students. And we had kind of a tradition that we give the general knowledge forward to the next generation. And we accumulated new information, generation by generation. But when the world changed, when the environment changed, there was no sense telling a teenager today how to use the rotatable landline phone, or how to use the paper map or the phone book, or how to rewind a cassette tape. There are a lot of skills that our parents and grandparents needed to have, but they can't give them forward anymore. Teenagers don't need these skills. And at the same time, the teenager and the young people, they can't ask for help from their parents either. Because if a 5-year-old asks, hey, grandma, what apps did you use when you were my age? The grandma can't answer that. She didn't have any. So she can't give this wisdom forward, right? Or if a teenager, a 15-year-old, let's say, asks from her, let's say, dad or mom, what did it feel like when you were bullied online as a teenager? The parents can't relate because they didn't have social media. They don't know anything of what it might feel like. So there is a danger that we grow apart because we have a very different environment in which we have been brought up. And basically what has happened now is that the new environment, new kind of, surrounding, the young people took it for granted. That's natural for them. They didn't have to unlearn things, but rather they were very fast at learning, adapting to this era. Whereas their parents, they had to go through a lot of effort in order to unlearn and try to kind of understand these new technologies and how to use these devices and whatnot. And in a way, now the younger people have been faster at learning how to use, these new gadgets. And in a way, now the teenagers are telling their parents how to use the phone, right? They're teaching their grandparents how to use the laptop, where do you find the settings and whatnot. So even though we have for a very long time given information from the older generation to the younger generation, now it has gone upside down. So the younger generation is giving the older generation fundamentally important knowledge, like how to use technology, without which you can't survive in the future. That's something everybody needs to know, the basics at least. So have we ever had a time in human history where it has been even possible that the younger generation is teaching, giving something important for their older generation, not the other way around? I don't think it has been possible before. So we are really living in unique times. And what this means, we need to redefine expertise. We need to redefine many things, because it's possible that a 17-year-old, let's say we talk about a YouTuber, they are very good at or with social media. So they know everything about the algorithms, what you should do or shouldn't do online. And they are very skilled with social media. I could say that this 17-year-old is therefore the best social media consultant in the country because they really know their stuff. But if I told somebody, an adult, that this 17-year-old is the best social media consultant in the country, they would maybe question me a bit, because come on, a 17-year-old doesn't look like an expert. No, 17-year-old doesn't sound like an expert. They don't use the words or terms that experts use. They don't wear the same clothes that experts wear. Nothing about them resembles or reminds us of an expert. So it might be a difficult thing for us to realize that this person, even though it doesn't fit the image we have, is still an expert. Because at the end of the day, they are the first Google generation, first, multimedia generation. So they might have some insights that nobody can have yet. So we need to understand that mentoring and teaching and education goes both ways now. I was in Myanmar some time ago. I founded a nonprofit there with a friend, and I visited this friend who had this like 10-year-old girl who had her birthday coming up. And she told us that she wants, for her birthday gift, she wants a factory on a desk. And nobody realized, what is this girl talking about? What is this gift? Until one of us realized that she's talking about 3D printers, but she just doesn't know the name, the word for it. So we whispered to her, it's a 3D printer. And she ran to her mom, grandparents, and shouted, I want a 3D printer for my birthday. And the mom, the grandparents, they didn't know. They have never heard of 3D printers. They don't know what it is. And I was just witnessing this situation from afar. This girl is so enthusiastic, excited about something, but the parents can't answer or react in any way to this girl's emotion. They can't they don't know what it's talking about. So we really have to pay attention to the reality of the other. Older people have experience. They know what's important, what's kind of essential in life, what doesn't change, what matters. But younger people have opinions and energy. They're willing to take risks, and they're very eager to do and try things. And we need both in the future. So we really need to kind of have this cross-generational dialogue more, especially if we look at the global age structure around the world. How many people are less than 30 globally? Think for a second. What is your estimation? Because the right answer is that over half of the population, over 50%, is under 30. Now, depending on where you live, the age structure might be the opposite. For example, in Finland, we have more of the older people, the older generation. Those are the big, but not so much young people, which means that we might be in a bubble, depending on where you are, that we don't see the younger people that much. I mean, if it was a realistic, expression of the world on the street, every other person coming to you should be under 30, and every fourth person should be under 14. What I'm going after with the statistics is that in about 10 to 50 to 20 years, all of these people who are now less than 30, they are coming into the workforce, meaning they are overrepresented, at work. There's so many of them. They're overrepresented as workers, as customers, as voters, as payers, meaning that if we want to be successful in anything, we have to take into consideration this age group, this demographic, because there's just so many of them, right? So they might have a different view on the world. Like they might have different opinions, or maybe different fears, maybe different, things that they want from life. So let's make sure that we don't forget, just because we don't, or we might not see so many of them around us, we don't forget that there are so many of them. In a couple of years only, it's been estimated that half of the population, in a couple of years, has been born in the 21st century. Half of the population in the earth, on the earth. So I think this is mind-boggling, which is very exciting. So we have different strengths. We have these people who have been born into a very different world than their parents, but we need the best from both of us. How many people are there when we make decisions that are less than 30? I don't think we see them too much. So we have to pay attention to this very, very much. Also, if you are over 30, it's a little joke for you, but you can think of it this way. If you remember the time before the internet, you will be among the last people ever in human history who remember the time before internet. Like people who don't remember the internet, like me, or everybody after me, will be majority. So very soon, people who were there before the internet, that's a rare thing. It's a very interesting thing. But anyway, what this means for us, what does it require from us, is a different mindset now. Traditional work life has gone something like this. We do certain things in certain order, and there are kind of rules, or there are advice what you should do in order to get here or there. So we liked this. We had control. So we had so-called good or certain jobs, but this is not the case anymore. We know that micro entrepreneurship is on the rise. We know that gig economy is getting more and more popular. Now that you can take online courses, you can re-educate yourself here or there, or if something happens in the world, there's a pandemic, it might change somebody's career completely, and for somebody else, nothing changes. So it's like this zigzag we're now doing. So everybody has a different personal, unique path that they will go on for the future, which means there are no guaranteed good or secure jobs. Nobody can tell you that this is a degree with which you will always survive, but rather there's much more uncertainty. Nobody can say what happens to this professional in 5 or 10 years, but you should still be able to be happy at the moment. So we need new kind of mindset. 50 or 100 years ago, and before that in the history, it was very typical for the parents and the children to have the same job, or even the same unique kind of path in life. So they were able to give advice what you should do and what you should try to achieve. But now if you think of parents and their children, if you have children, you can't compare their life paths to your own life path. They are not the same anymore. And we have to be very careful when we give advice. What worked for us might not work for them. One gentleman once told me that no matter what happens in the world, two things will never go away. People will always argue or fight with each other, and people will always get sick. So for lawyers and doctors, there's always work. And it sounded kind of logical, but where does the AI go first? Well, to these jobs. So even though it sounds like, hey, this is a secure thing, we have to be very careful when we look far ahead. What are the kind of things that will remain? But we need kind of best of both worlds, as I said, experience from both. One last thing I want to give or leave to you is this question: what can I get from you that I can't get from Google? So Google, for example, can't look me in the eye. Google can't touch me on the shoulder. Google doesn't have body warmth. It's not present. Google has all the information in the world, but it doesn't care, right? It doesn't hug. It doesn't smile. It lacks all these human kind of elements. And in the future, we have to ask ourselves more and more, why would I go to school? What do I get from there that I can't get from online? Why do I go to this workplace? What do I get from there that I can't get online? And from each other as well. We have options, we can search for information, but what can I get from you that I can't get from anywhere else? And those are the things we should be very good at. For example, if I ask a question, what's the most important, let's say, what's the capital of, let's say, the US? There's right and wrong answers, right? So this creates a situation in the classroom where somebody knows and they raise their hands and they feel good about themselves, But then there are people who don't know and they try to avoid the eye contact with the teacher and they don't say anything. And then there are people who think they know, but they have the wrong answer. Just this question creates this tension, who is good, who is bad, who knows, who doesn't. But if I change the question, what is the most important city in the US? You can say any city, but you have to tell me why. You can say Los Angeles because there's entertainment and it's well known. You can say New York because of the economics. You can say DC because of politics. It's all about the kind of perspective. So this is a question that you can't get an answer to from Google. Google hasn't experienced anything. It doesn't have an opinion the same way. So let's be careful to include people from different age groups together. Let's get experience from different life paths so that we can together look to the future, and let's ask questions from each other that only we humans can answer to, so that we really create connection and some wisdom for the future of work, future of education, future of jobs. But with this, I hope you get some ideas, and if nothing else, intergenerational dialogue is, I think, one of the most important things when it comes to future careers and how to kind of look forward from here. Let's not make the same mistakes that previous generations did. So thank you very much and have a great day. This is also my book if you're interested in learning more about the skills in the future. I just thought I'd put the picture of it. But anyway, you can contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias, Perttu. Gracias por esta participación, por la entrega. Un placer.